Daniel and the Miracle in the Lion's Den, a lesson of faith, biblical story. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're going on an incredible journey through the story of Daniel and the miracle that happened in the lion's den. This is one of the most inspiring biblical stories, teaching us about faith, courage, and God's incredible protection. Get ready to discover how Daniel faced a tremendous challenge and emerged victorious due to his unwavering trust in God. Let's explore together how this story can inspire us to be strong and faithful in our own lives. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our videos about biblical stories and lessons of faith. And if you enjoy the video, please leave a comment and share your thoughts with us. We really want to hear what you think about this incredible story. So, let's dive in. Join us as we explore the story of Daniel and the miracle in the lion's den. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Daniel who lived in the ancient kingdom of Babylon. Daniel was from a royal family in Judah, but he was taken to Babylon when his city was conquered. Along with other young nobles, Daniel was chosen to serve King Nebuchadnezzar. The king even changed Daniel's name to Belteshazzar and gave new names to his friends. Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah became Abednego. These young men were trained in the language and customs of the Babylonians to serve in the king's court. But there was a problem. The king's food did not comply with Daniel's faith. So, he asked the chief official for permission for him and his friends to eat only vegetables and drink water for 10 days. Daniel said, "After 10 days, compare our appearance with that of the other young men who eat the king's food." The chief official was afraid that Daniel and his friends would appear weak, but agreed to the test. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his friends were healthier than the other young men. So, they continued eating only vegetables and drinking water. God blessed Daniel and his friends with great wisdom and understanding. They excelled and were 10 times wiser than all the magicians and enchanters in Babylon. One day, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that greatly troubled him, but he couldn't remember the dream. He summoned all the wise men of the kingdom and said, "I want you to tell me my dream and what it means. If you can't, I will cut you into pieces." The wise men said that no one could do such a thing, only the gods. The king became furious and ordered all the wise men to be executed, including Daniel and his friends. When Daniel heard about this, he asked the king for time and prayed to God with his friends. God revealed to Daniel the dream and its meaning. The next day, Daniel went to the king and said, "No one can reveal the dream, but there is a God in heaven who can." Daniel told the king the dream. "Your Majesty, you saw a great statue. Its head was made of gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay." Then a stone, not cut by human hands, struck the statue's feet and smashed them. All the metals turned to dust, but the stone became a great mountain that filled the whole earth. Daniel explained that the statue represented 4 great empires. The head of gold was King Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, and the other metals represented kingdoms that would come after. The stone symbolized the kingdom of God, which would last forever. King Nebuchadnezzar was amazed and acknowledged Daniel's God as the true God. And that's the story of Daniel, a tale of faith and how God was always by his side. Among the people at the ceremony were 3 of Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When the music played, everyone kneeled down and worshipped the statue, except Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They refused to worship any god other than their own. Some furious officials ran to tell the king that the 3 friends had not obeyed. The king became very angry and summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He gave them one more chance to kneel down and worship the statue, but they responded courageously, "Your Majesty, our God can save us from the blazing furnace. But even if he doesn't, we will not worship your statue." King Nebuchadnezzar became even more furious and ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tied up and thrown into the furnace. But to everyone's surprise, they were not burned. They walked around in the fire unharmed, and there was a fourth person with them who looked like an angel. The astonished king called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego out of the furnace. They came out unharmed, not even smelling of smoke. The king then praised the God of the three friends and declared that no other God could save like that God. Later, King Nebuchadnezzar had another strange dream. He dreamed of a great tree in the middle of the earth, so tall that it reached the heavens and was visible to the ends of the earth. The tree provided food and shelter for all the animals. And so, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shows us how faith in God can protect us even in the most difficult situations. One day, an angel descended from heaven and ordered a great tree to be cut down, leaving only a stump with roots bound in iron and bronze. The angel declared that King Nebuchadnezzar would be driven away from human society and would live with wild animals, eating grass like cattle, until he acknowledged that God is the true king of all the kingdoms on earth and can give power to whomever he wants. When Daniel heard the king's dream, he was worried and hesitant to explain its meaning, but the king urged him to continue. So, Daniel explained that the tree represented King Nebuchadnezzar himself. He warned that unless the king humbled himself and acknowledged God's sovereignty, he would be driven from his throne and live among the animals. 12 months passed, and the king remained proud and arrogant. One day, as he walked on the roof of his palace, he boasted about his great achievements and the splendor of his kingdom. At that moment, a voice from heaven declared, "King Nebuchadnezzar, your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from human society and will live with wild animals, eating grass like cattle. 7 years will pass until you acknowledge that God is the true sovereign over all the kingdoms of the earth." As predicted, King Nebuchadnezzar was driven from his throne and lived among the wild animals, eating grass like cattle. His hair grew long like eagle's feathers and his nails became like birds' claws. After 7 years, his sanity was restored, and he praised and worshipped the God of heaven. He acknowledged that God is the true ruler of the earth and was restored to his throne with even greater power than before. Years later, Nebuchadnezzar's successor, King Belshazzar, held a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles. During the feast, Belshazzar ordered the gold and silver vessels taken from the temple in Jerusalem to be brought in, so that he and his guests could drink from them and praise their gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. As they drank from the sacred vessels and praised their idols, a mysterious hand appeared and wrote on the wall of the king's palace. The king was terrified, and his face turned pale with fear. He called for his enchanters, astrologers, and wise men to interpret the writing, but none could understand its meaning. Then the queen remembered Daniel, the Jewish exile who had interpreted dreams for King Nebuchadnezzar. She told the king about Daniel and his gift of interpreting dreams and visions. Daniel was brought before the king, who promised him great rewards if he could interpret the writing on the wall. But Daniel refused the rewards and told the king that no amount of wealth could buy the interpretation he would give. Daniel explained that the writing on the wall was a message from God proclaiming the fall of King Belshazzar's kingdom. The words, "Mean, tekel parsin," meant that God had numbered the days of Belshazzar's reign and brought it to an end, that the kingdom had been weighed and found wanting, and would be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That very night, Belshazzar was killed, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. Daniel's interpretation came true, once again demonstrating the power and sovereignty of God. King Darius had a vast kingdom and needed help to govern it. So, he appointed 120 governors, called satraps, and 3 administrators to oversee them. One of these administrators was Daniel. Daniel was so excellent in what he did that the king planned to set him over the entire kingdom. But the other administrators and satraps became jealous of Daniel. They tried to find some reason to accuse him of wrongdoing, but they couldn't. Daniel was always honest and hard-working. So, they came up with a wicked plan, knowing that Daniel was deeply devoted to God and prayed 3 times a day. The administrators and satraps went to King Darius with a plan. They convinced the king to make a new law stating that for 30 days, no one could pray to any god or man except King Darius. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown into the lion's den. Even knowing about the new law, Daniel continued praying to God 3 times a day, as he always did. The administrators and satraps spied on him, and when they saw him praying, they rushed to tell the king. King Darius was very sad because he liked Daniel, but he couldn't change his own law. So, he had to order Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den. That night, King Darius couldn't sleep, worried about Daniel. Early the next morning, he ran to the lion's den and called out, "Daniel, are you still alive?" To his joy, Daniel answered, "Long live the king! My God sent his angel who shut the mouths of the lions. They didn't harm me because I am innocent before God and have never done anything wrong against you, O king." King Darius was so happy that he ordered Daniel to be taken out of the lion's den immediately. Then he commanded that the men who had plotted against Daniel be thrown into the den, along with their families. Before they even reached the bottom, the lions attacked them. Afterward, King Darius made a new law, declaring that everyone in the kingdom should respect and worship the God of Daniel, for he is the living God who saves and protects. Daniel's faithfulness to God saved him from the lion's den and was a great example to the king and all the people of Babylon. And so, the story of Daniel teaches us to be courageous and faithful to God, even in difficult times. It shows that if we trust in God and stand firm in our beliefs, He will always be there to help us. And so ends the incredible story of Daniel and the miracle in the lion's den. I hope you've been inspired by this lesson of faith and courage. The story of Daniel shows us that, even in the face of great challenges, trusting in God makes all the difference. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring Bible stories and lessons of faith. And we would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on the story and how it touched you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, may God bless you all.